when we got asked to present at UI5con, we had a plan immediately what to talk about. We would talk about the value proposition of Fiori elements. So, UX consistency, enterprise readiness, and developer productivity. And then mix in a little bit of the flexible programming model, because that's the only thing that Katja talks about these days. So that was the plan.
You're right, it certainly is. But first things first, I'm thrilled to be here again. It's great to see you back online and even some brave souls here in the Audimax. But you're right, the flexible programming model is one of my favorite topics because it demos so well and it's such a great asset of SAP Fiori elements. But yesterday, Ashley and Tobias already showed you how easy it is to implement an SAP Fiori elements application using the flexible programming model. And later today, Holger and Marius will present you how UniOrg is using our building blocks for production apps. So there will be no flexible programming model in this session, unfortunately. But back to the value proposition of SAP Fiori elements. I think you all know SAP Fiori elements reduces the total cost of ownership of SAP Fiori apps.
Well, so bummer, our entire plan fell apart. And now we have a problem. What are you going to talk about? Well, I think a year ago you were here on stage and you set the scene for a big push into open source. And yesterday there was a lot of questions that Tobias actually got on what our plans are. So how are we doing on that?
This is our Open UX Tools repository. And here you can find all the modules we have already released. And of course, the modules that are the foundation of SAP Fiori tools. You can see the generator here, and we already got contributions from the community. So thank you, Volker and Lucas, for it. And in the session yesterday, Tobias and Ashley, they used the generator logic and combined it with the community-owned Easy UI5 generator. I was really impressed to see it. And we also have a well-known company contributing to our repository. But due to their company policy, they are not allowed to make that publicly. So if you want to contribute, but you don't feel comfortable, or due to your policy, you are not allowed to make this publicly, feel free to reach out to us. We can make something work.
So if you want to learn more about our strategy for open source in detail, you can read that blog post that Katja just pointed out that actually goes into a lot of detail on how we go about this. But this is a keynote, so we're going to sum this up a little bit. So we are continuing and holding the course to make more and more of Fiori elements open source, more of Fiori tools open source. So we've been looking at all the different components. We've recently released a mock server that we've created for our own purposes. We actually used it in a keynote in case the internet would drop. Never happened before. And so we actually just made that available publicly. And we're using the same thing actually internally to run our own test frameworks against it. We've also made a full VSIX file or project available where we're actually building guided answers as a standalone component of an open source repository. So we've done a lot more on the different topics that you've seen yesterday. But when it comes to open source, any open source project is only as good as the community around it, and that is you guys. So it is super important that you contribute to the project, because Fiori Tools is your tool to make it easier to use Fiori elements.
Ease of use, what a great keyword. So one of the big investments area of us were last year, how we can make the tools easier, how can we improve them. We wanted to lower the burden of entry of SAP Fiori elements and SAP Fiori tools. Internally, we call it low-code tools, but realistically, they help you no matter how much code your application has. Let me show you.
So we had to come up with a scenario, and it's 2022, the world's going in a tailspin. So our scenario is pretty straightforward. We took the travel service that you all are familiar with, but in this case, we care about the vendors, the agencies we're conducting business with, because we want to reach out to the ones that we do most business with and ask them for a discount.
This is a CAP backend, and I'm in Visual Studio Code. I showed you the last 2 years how easy it is to generate a Fiori Elements application. This year, I decided I prepare it up front. It has, of course, all the characteristics you know from SAP Fiori Elements. We have a list report. I can navigate to the object page. It gives me all the details. But for now, let's focus on the list report. Sebastian already mentioned we want to see the agency. I can launch the page map. Edit my list report. And easily add a contact column. I want to see the agency name. Of course, I need a label. Priority. And it should be the second column. You can see CDS Watch already going crazy, so I definitely did some changes affecting the app. And now I have my agency contact card.
That was pretty fast and pretty neat to look at. However, I somehow suspect that filling that with content will require a lot of annotation know-how, right?
No, that's super simple. New stage. Changes quickly. I can select the column, quickly navigate to, let's have a phone number. Email address. Here you can see that we automatically generated the corresponding annotations into the annotation file, so there is no need to know them by heart.
Neat.
And now you can call them right away to negotiate.
But that would require me making 1,422 calls. That's a lot. I don't like that much work. Could you turn that, like, throw that away, create an ALP and show me the ones we do most business with?
These are the OData before flow plans. I can easily add a chart on top of the list report. Go back to the page, map, add chart. I think you want to have a column chart.
Sounds right. I'll let you know after.
Thank you. Total price and the agency as dimension. Here you go.
Would be great if that could actually filter, by the way.
Of course it can.
Oh, quite impressive. Really cool. How does that actually work under the hood?
So we have added the corresponding chart annotations, and we also changed the manifest accordingly.
Well, that's interesting. So as you can see there, we now have two annotation paths that we're maintaining. The one on top points at the chart that we see. And if you look at the lower one, that points at the presentation variant, which in turn points at the line item. So that's why we have a list report and a chart on top. Now you can see Fiori Elements for OData v4 has moved quite a bit. There's a lot of capabilities that we're providing out of the box at this stage. And that's why we've changed the default technology for the S4HANA organization. So when the S4HANA organization is creating a new Fiori app at this stage, the default technology is Fiori Elements for OData v4. And we've also shifted or started the shift of the development environment from Web IDE to the Business Application Studio. And we did hit a major milestone on that just last month, because for the first time ever, did we have more internal S4HANA developers using the Business Application Studio rather than Web IDE.
But just to make it clear, that doesn't mean that we drop the support of the OData v2 floor plans. They are and they will be the core for thousands of productive apps. So there is no need for you to migrate existing apps. But if you want to implement new apps, I would recommend that you look at the OData v4 floor plans.
Now, of course, there's something you need to take away from this conference about Web IDE. SAP has stopped selling new licenses of Web IDE, and new innovation is coming to the Business Application Studio. So if you haven't made a plan yet to migrate from Web IDE to Business Application Studio, you should definitely do so. If you're a Fiori tools user, you don't need to be concerned. We're going to continue to provide Fiori tools for the Business Application Studio, as well as for Visual Studio Code. Now that we actually see both of those on the slide, how about we do the next demo not in Visual Studio Code like the first one, but use Business Application Studio instead?
Yes, the next demo will be with the SAP Business Application Studio and Steampunk as a backend system.
Oh, so if you are not up to date with your SAP lingo like in the before times, Steampunk, that's SAP's ABAP stack on SAP Business Technology Platform, and it's kind of the nickname for it.
But wait, I think I already proved very often to the audience that I can generate Fiori Elements apps. What about you? My Mac is yours.
I'm not so much concerned about that. It's a Mac. All right, so we should be seeing a Business Application Studio right here. And I can probably open a command. Well, I can't. Command palette should be something like this.
Control.
There we go. We have an application generator. I can launch that. And we are building a Fiori Elements list report application. And this is a Steampunk system, so we're connecting to a system. And since this is BTP, we're relying on a pre-maintained destination. In this case, we're going to use this one. And it now pulls all the catalog information from the backend, so we can select our server. I broke it.
Scroll down a bit. You can launch right away from here a brand new extension from us, Guided Answers. You just have to follow the prompts like you do in your adventure games.
All right, let me try this. So we are in the Fiori generator, and there's our error message already. So let's select that. It says I should open an environment check. Let me try that. I can't even click on this thing. And let me scroll down here, select our destination, carefully touch the enter button, and say that we would like to view the results. And we can see that something happened. And something is definitely wrong because there's red icons here. So it says we should ensure that a property HTML5 dynamic destination is set. So I think you missed that when you set this up.
Sorry about that.
Okay, let me refresh that, hoping that we still have network. And look for our destination. Hit that little pen, add a new property. It was something with dynamic, so there's dynamic destination. I'm going to set that to true. And we hit the save button. Now everything is perfectly fine for sure. And we'll just run through this again. We open our application generator, select our list report. We have a system as a data source. It's going to be our destination. And again, we're pulling in the catalog service and getting all the services available for us, hopefully. It seems to be taking a little longer, so I think that's a good sign, don't you think?
I think so too.
And there seem to be a lot of services that it's pulling from. And there they are. So we can now look for one. I think it had something with 100 and a Fiori Elements OData v4 service. And we click next. Our main entity, as you remember from earlier, was travel, and we had navigation to bookings available, and we hit next. Now, of course, we ask for basic attributes. So this is UI5con demo. And I think your app was called Analyze
Bookings.
And I can hit finish and just walk away because this is as easy as it is to create an application. So you saw I got derailed there a little bit and used the board tools of Fiori tools to actually resolve the issue, which is pretty cool. We have invested a lot to make it easier for people to solve their own problems in our Fiori Elements development world. So we've provided guided answers. We've launched an open SAP course about a year ago that actually walks you through how to set up a Fiori Elements project. And we have continue to invest in our documentation. So every time you go back and look at the documentation, you'll find that it got better and better. And we have invested in countless new and more sophisticated guides for guided development.
Let me show you. But first, let's check what Sebastian did. Let's run the application. And there is the list report. For me, it's always very annoying if I have to press the go button. So I can open the guided development. Search for auto load, start the guide, and quickly enable the mode to enabled. Insert the snippet. My UI gets refreshed. And the data is loaded automatically. I can also navigate right away to the object page. I think you know we want to save costs, so we want to know from our employees which company they are visiting. Right now, I don't find this information in my app, so I would like to add a field group. So I go back to my system, exit this guide, and search for field group. Add a field group as a section to a page. Start the guide and just have to follow the steps. I need to select an entity type, qualifier, company, oops. And I want to have 3 fields. I want to have the company name, company type, and I want to know how many people attended the meeting. And then I can just simply insert a snippet. I go to the next step because I want to have a label called company info. I also add this snippet. And when I go back to the object page, I have a field group that can be maintained. But this is steampunk, so it's based on ABAP. And some of you would prefer to have the annotations bundled together with the service. So we have also enhanced our guides so that you get the examples for the ABAP CDS annotations. Here I can also start the guide, enter some required fields, and you get they get the snippet generated. Unfortunately, we can't provide you built-in support, built-in integration, but you can copy it to your CDS view.
So I think we've now seen some ABAP, we've seen some CAP, we have seen Business Application Studio, we've seen VS Code. I think we've seen a whole lot of different things, and we've talked about how we're making the life of developers better. We've talked about how to create a consistent user experience, and we even briefly mentioned the flexible programming model. But what we haven't talked about is how we're making the life of end users any better. Is there anything new coming for end users, like FLP type things?
With the new S/4HANA Cloud 2208 release, we will release the first version of the My homepage, the new homepage for S/4HANA Cloud. It leverages the proven technology of the ABAP FLP, pages and spaces, and we have added, for example, to-dos, situations, and the so-called insight section. The insight section leverages the efforts we have done in the overview pages. So if I'm an end user and I already have an overview page, and I would like to have one of those cards pinned to the inside section, I can easily add the card. And it shows up here right away.
Wow, can learn a lot about Deutsche customer in this. Quite amazing to see that. So what's happening under the hood, if you remember what an overview page actually looks like, is that in the manifest, you have the definition of the service and what to show on that card. And what we're doing is we're parsing that information and we're dynamically creating a UI5 integration card. And you have 8 slots on the product homepage where you can actually render them. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, I still see you standing at your laptop, so I feel we're not done yet. What's the next thing that you have for us?
We are also working on an integration into Microsoft Teams. So with the 2208 release, you can also share the URL or the deep link to an application into Microsoft Teams. So I have here an application I can share to Microsoft Teams. Share it with Sebastian. You can see the URL here with the context. You can go to Teams. And now I can start a conversation with Sebastian about the items I just shared.
So again, we're delivering on all the different parts. We have enterprise readiness, we have developer productivity because you get the capability out of the box, and we're providing this consistently across all Fiori applications. So with that, we've actually reached the end of our presentation, and we hope you're going to have a great rest of your UI5con.
Have
Thank
fun.
you.